You have a big, bold, brilliant idea, but something's holding you back. It's inside of you. It's a flock of chickens. I love making people laugh and always have. And by the way, I record myself when I'm speaking and then play. And this is the worst part. You have to watch it afterwards. Bringing laughter to millions, helping others lower their stress, living life to the absolute fullest.
Hello, welcome to Living Rich Sirop. This is a show where we help you get back in touch with that magic inside, that truth that you know that's been speaking to you for a long time. And today my guest knows all about that magic. His name is Phil Barth. He's a keynote speaker, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire alum, and author of Fry Your Chickens, a guide to shutting down the stress, self-doubt, and inner critics that keep us stuck. After surviving a heart attack, his doctor called minor, and his wife called a wake-up call, Phil made stress management his mission, and today he teaches teams how to lower stress, raise performance, and laugh a little, okay, hopefully a lot, along the way. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Rich, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while.
You know, you meet people in all different sorts of ways. And the way that you and I met, and the fact that we're friends now, is kind of miraculous, because I've met thousands of people this way, but you're one of only two people that I actually became friends with after the fact.
We met in Cleveland, Ohio, several years ago. I was interviewing for becoming a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You did my interview in Cleveland, and then you were my associate producer on the game show. I remember when you interviewed me, it was one of the high points of my life being on that show. Thank you so much. And sure enough, you and I had a couple mutual connections. And then from there, we started talking about keynote speaking and all kinds of things. And next thing you know, you've been on my podcast, and now I'm on your podcast.
But you know, you tried out many times. When we first started auditioning for Millionaire, I remember we went to Chicago. It was the first city we went to. It was before you could audition on an iPhone. There were no iPhones. You couldn't make a video and send it in. We were one of the first game shows to really go on the road and do a full tour. That's how we started getting our contestants. There were 6,000 people in line in Chicago. We had to interview people for 20 hours because there's only 4 producers. We didn't expect that amount of people. And that's what you were up against to get on that show. But what was your journey like to get on the show?
When I talk about this, I say it was a full-blown obsession. I knew I was going to be on that show, and I was telling everybody, look, I'm going to be on that show. And I didn't want to, have to go back later and say, yeah, I couldn't make it. I didn't do it. And so I was going to try everything I could. And I auditioned in Chicago and did not get the card. And then about a month later, I auditioned in Indianapolis. So Chicago, I actually flew there. Indianapolis, I drove there. And then the third time the charm was going to Cleveland. And that's where you interviewed me.
What made you, was there a driving force other than you just didn't want to be embarrassed?
Yeah, it was, first off, my grandma watched some of the first shows and she loved it. And she passed away not long after that first season of Millionaire. And I thought, well, she would really find this cool if I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That said, if it was Who Wants to Win $100, I don't think I would have gone for it. So, right, there is that whole idea of Millionaire. And the other thing that happened was I was watching every single show, which, by the way, gave me a real advantage when they gave the questions in the first round because they were all from the shows. It was like I studied. But one night I was watching somebody and I knew every single one of their questions up to $500,000, and they quit because they didn't know the $500,000 question. So all of a sudden I'm having this holy crap moment that, it's nice to think about, but this could actually happen and it could be big money. Not that 32,000 is little money. It absolutely is not.
Right.
That's what I won. But it's real freaking money. And so I was always like, I'm going to get it. But once that happened, I was like, I'm all in.
You got to your $64,000 question in good shape. You had a 50-50 left. You had the phone a friend left.
Yes. And
then you got the question about the origin of the word mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all she wrote. But, I will tell you this after watching your episode. You clearly had a room full of people.
Right.
He was reading the question to.
Right.
Did Google exist yet? Google must not have been a thing.
It did, and I didn't think it was good enough because I had somebody in another room that had Google. And so here's the worst thing I did, Rich, was afterwards I called him and said, "Well, could you Google this answer?" And I gave it to him in like 5 seconds. I was like, "Son
Really?
of
I was going to ask you if that happened.
oh yeah, yeah."
Yeah.
So I
People
just
overthink it. The best thing you could ever have is a smart friend. It's better than Google. It's better than a group of people because Google can give you the wrong answer. You don't have time to really research it. The translating of the question took forever when that person did it. Tom, wasn't
yeah,
it Tom?
it was Tom,
Tom.
and Tom was also my smart friend. So
Well,
we
he
agreed,
was he was freaked out.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was, but Tom was the one we would go out to lunch and play trivia, and Tom was always he was ahead of me on the trivia. So yeah, he was a little freaked out, and
So what were you doing for a living when you auditioned for Millionaire? Because now you're a keynote speaker and an author and
I was an IT geek.
okay, so how did that happen? How did you go from IT geek to contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to three-time author, three-time? Or is it
Two.
three? Two
No, I'm
times.
sorry, you're right. Three. I forgot about the Cleveland sports book because
Right.
it's depressing.
Yep, still three-time author
Right.
and a keynote speaker who gets booked all over the country. How did that happen?
So let's start with how did I get in the IT field? My uncle was in IT and drove a Corvette, and in high school I thought, well, if this then that, so I'm going to learn computers. Now, the first clue should have been that my grade point average in my major was significantly lower than my grade point average outside of my major, but I still went on to the computer programming world. And, and I found while I was in the computer programming world that I really liked teaching people, working with the end users, talking more than I like coding. So I kind of progressed, the career progressed in that direction. How did the speaking
What
come
type of
out?
car were you driving?
Not a Corvette.
So it didn't work out.
No, no, yeah. Well, there was a whole host of reasons why that didn't work out, and I never regretted not having the Corvette. So I was training people for my job, and I decided that it would be cool to do a presentation at a conference. And I filled it out, the call for speakers, and they picked me. It was a free speech at this conference back. This was even before Millionaire. And I got the feedback from the conference, and I was in the top 70, but there were only 72 speakers. It was just brutal, brutal. And so I decided, well, I didn't mind doing it. I was just terrible. So I went to Toastmasters and started learning and just kept progressing. And eventually, after I got better in Toastmasters, somebody said, "Hey, would you come and do a speech and we'll pay you?" I'm like, "You'll pay me for what I was willing to do for free?" And just kept going that route.
Wow, that's amazing. And Toastmasters, it's not just like, oh, you join Toastmasters and you get better. People do get better. I'm in Toastmasters now. But I watched your Toastmaster speech when you were a semifinalist, right? And it was so good. And you can tell some people have it. Did you have it pretty much right away, or did it take time?
No, 10 years.
10 years to get that good.
I often say I was never afraid of public speaking, but I should have been because because it just yeah, I would say what was on my mind as opposed to what the audience came to hear. And
Wow.
it took a while to learn that. Did I have natural ability to talk? Absolutely. Was it on point and what people needed to hear right away? No way.
What do you think you learned over the course of 10 years? What are some of the big lessons, the
Uh,
turning points?
the biggest lesson is before you get up to speak, what do you want that audience to think, feel, and do when you are done? And another big lesson is if you crowd all the information in, you crowd the audience out. So I was putting all of this stuff in, and then you got to talk fast to get it all in time, and you just lose the audience. And it is tough. It is tough when I write a story and I'm like, I can't kill that line. You have to kill that line. You have to kill it to get it down to the point where you're actually connecting with the audience.
Yeah, that's also something that I've had seen myself do in speeches already is I'm just trying to give too much information in a
Yep.
short time and people are trying to write it down because when I do my speeches at Toastmasters, I'm doing a lot of coaching stuff. So I'm talking about being associated versus disassociated or primary representational systems. So it's actually valuable information for these people. and they're learning and they love it and they're writing it down. But now it's getting better. But the feedback I was getting early was, I couldn't take in everything that you were trying to say. And I wish that it had gone slower, the speech was longer, so I could have really followed you better. It takes time to learn that
It really does.
for sure. So you use humor a lot in your speech. Um,
Yes.
did you ever consider doing stand-up comedy? How did you have the ability to be funny in front of an audience?
Somebody asked me that a long time ago. Have you ever considered stand-up comedy? And I said, I don't think I could handle hecklers. And that was it. Now, could I have learned to handle hecklers? Yeah, I probably could have. There's a set strategy for handling hecklers, but I just didn't want to go down that road because I was scared. Chickens, right? And I didn't fry that particular chicken. I would have liked to, and I still might at some point do an open mic stand up just to see what it feels like, because I love making people laugh and always have.
Same thing that you're talking about in speaking works for stand-up. If you try to put too many, if the setup's too long, if you're putting too many jokes on top of each other, if you're not letting silence have its place, and you're trying to fill every single gap with more stuff, it's the same thing. You have to go slower. You have to trust in your material. You have to know how you want to make your audience feel. It's really no different. And the truth is, um, hecklers, they don't happen that often unless you invite it. Sometimes they'll happen when you don't expect it. But most of the time, when you see hecklers, the comedians kind of invited it. They're already messing with the audience. They're doing a lot of crowd work. So, like, how long have you two been together? And what's going on here? What's happening? They're making fun of people. So then people start yelling back at them. But if they do yell out, they're usually so dumb. And what they said is so idiotic that
Right.
it's really, you don't even have to do much with it. It kind of takes care of itself.
That makes sense. Something else you said, which was one of the things I've learned for speaking, is the power of silence and the power of a pause. And oh my gosh, the first time I did that, it just felt like, and by the way, I record myself when I'm speaking and then play. And this is the worst part. You have to watch it afterwards.
Right.
Ugh. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I must have paused for 7 seconds there. And you watch it and it was like 1.5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to get used to it and comfortable that I'm going to pause and let it sink in. I'm going to watch the reaction in the audience to know that the point sunk in.
How personally do you take each presentation?
Very,
So
very.
if you have a bad one, it kind of lives with you and your family for a little while.
A little bit, yeah. I've had a couple bad ones. The other piece of it is I will occasionally get somebody that didn't like it, and they will write a negative review. And I got one, and yeah, I talk about frying your chickens and all of the items, how you program your brain to ignore the fears and negativities, the self-doubt. And I used a lot of humor, and somebody just hated it and waited till the end to fill out the form.
They
You could
really
have left
didn't
a
like
half
it.
an hour ago. But but
What they hate about it? They just didn't like the humor?
said you just don't understand that there are certain factors that don't make it possible for everybody to do what you said. External
Uh,
factors, and you were channeling the secret, and you did this and you did that. And I just, the first thing I do is throw some stuff around the office, mostly rubber chickens. But
your
then
whole life is chickens.
then I think, okay, is there anything I can take from this? Because one person wrote, your story about who wants to be a millionaire was 25 years ago. What have you done lately, or something like that? And I was like, well, that's a crappy feedback. And then I thought, no, wait a minute. All I have to do is add one sentence, and it's this. At the end, I say, and I realize these stories have happened, some of them 25 and 30 years ago, but that's the whole point. The chicken you fry today can make your next 25 to 30 years better.
So it made you better.
Ooh, yeah. Now, this one, I couldn't come up with anything. I asked my son to look at it, and he said, yeah, it's just somebody who's been out of shape. Ultimately, what I did was I talked with some people, because I want to, if there's any way to improve from something, I want to. And where we came out was, I've got a speaker friend of mine. The lady says, if you're not pissing off 10% of your audience, you're not doing your job.
Yep.
and I don't piss off 10%, but it was right, because if I wanted to acknowledge that feedback, I would have to from the stage say, now I realize this won't work for everybody. And you've completely watered down the message, and the 90% you wanted to hit you've lost them.
We all have that need for to be liked.
Right.
And I was a people pleaser for a long time. And so now the thing that I use with clients and myself is, why am I? I always ask, why am I? So if I'm upset about something, if I get a negative comment on YouTube, I say, why am I upset about this? Is it because it's true? Is it because why am I? Why am I friends with these people? Why am I doing this for a living? And, why am I upset that three people in the audience didn't like it? The answer is almost always because I'm not sure that I'm good at that moment.
That's
You
fair.
And
Yep.
so once I start to feel more confident, comedy was that way. In fact, comedy, the funny thing about comedy is you start out by getting such a high off of like five laughs or six, whatever you get, right? And then you get better and more people are laughing and the laughing is getting bigger. But as you get better, you're able to see the audience better. And then you start to focus on the people that aren't laughing. And they're the ones that you shouldn't be focused on at all. My son said it to me once. I was preparing this presentation, and I said, "There's two people at work that just can't stand me, and I'm trying to get the message across here to make these two people like me." And he said, no, he was like 14 or 13 when he said this. He said, "Well, how many people are you presenting to?" I said, it's like 25 people." And he goes, "And only two people don't like you?" I said,
Mm,
"Yeah." He goes, "Well, why wouldn't you make the thing for the 23 people that do like you? Because even if you do a good job, the two people that don't like you are probably going to like you even less."
right.
So
Yep.
accurate.
That's brilliant.
By the way, let's talk about chickens. Okay.
Let's talk about chickens.
Let's talk
Yes.
about chickens. It's your book that's out right now. And it's also something that I find fascinating. How did you get in? How did the whole chicken thing come about?
So the very first contest where I did well in Toastmasters was 2011. And the name of my speech, it went through iterations, but when it really caught on, it was the title was six S's. And so they would announce, here's Phil Barth, and the whole audience going, what's he talking about? What's he talking about? And, is it a snake? What is it? And so I tell them, you have a big, bold, brilliant idea, but something's holding you back. It's inside of you. It's a flock of chickens. And today you need to take out those chickens, get a pan, and fry them. And the whole audience just exploded in laughter. It's like,
Wow.
oh, we get it. We're there with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and at the time, I didn't have access to all the rubber chickens. So I was actually walking around like this, being the chickens like, oh, she's out of your league, and having this dialogue. And it worked fairly
Wow.
well.
Awesome. That's amazing. So you're basically doing a pattern interrupt, which is what
Yes,
we would call it in NLP, which is like, it's silly. It's ridiculous when you hear that voice in your head saying you're not good enough. You're just turning it into a chicken.
exactly. And eventually, this became that.
Right. So what are your chickens that you're frying these days?
I think a little bit of it is still imposter syndrome. That's why when the negative feedback comes in, you got one inside of your head going, see, told you weren't good enough.
Mhm.
So and so from Vancouver agreed with me. And so you have to deal with that. I have gotten better about, you'll never have, you're going to lose your money. Blah. I have to have all the security and all the money, and I've gotten better about that.
Okay.
You can't go out on your own, because you'll wind up broke and destitute, and your family will all leave, and all of that kind of silly stuff. That one I've gotten better about, but I think there's still, and they're all a flavor of imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm. They're all just every client I've ever had, the basic thing that they all have is I'm not good enough.
Hmm.
That it drives almost every person and their behaviors. And once you can start to feel that sense of worth, you start to behave differently. But when you do these speeches, do you talk about even that part? Like, I feared that I wasn't going to have enough money and I felt like I didn't have security. Does your life end up finding its way back in as you're kind of healing yourself and frying your own chickens?
To an extent. I I talk about, as I'm talking about each story, and here was the chicken that was holding me back, and that's in the book too. Is I think one of them's called Fearful Freddy, Doubting Dave. Like I'm doubting myself that I can do this, and so most of the stories are really little things, like getting all the self-doubt and fear when I wanted to ask my wife out on that first date. And we're friends, and now I'm going to try to ask her out on a date. Will that work? And that's what people can relate to. Nobody can relate if I say, well, the time I climbed Mount Everest, which I have not climbed Mount Everest, but nobody can relate to that. But getting scared to ask somebody out on a date or ride a roller coaster, people can relate to that. And so, you just, here's what happened. Here's where I'm at. And here's what the positive outcome was. And now that I think about it, yes, the original version of Fry Your Chickens was, I talked at the end, I said, we got up today, and when I got to the car, it was Mother's Day, and we made my wife breakfast in bed, and I said, I'm so glad I fried the marriage chicken, and our kids were doing this. I'm so glad I fried the having children chicken. And then when we got in the car, and I got in the passenger side, and I handed my 15-and-a-half-year-old the keys, I realized I've still got chickens to fry.
Of course.
Right? Everybody can relate. And then you say, and that's why I have to keep doing this.
And I like that you talk about perfection too, which is a big thing that I like to talk about. And you're right. When you have imposter syndrome and you're afraid to actually take chances because you think you might fail, a lot of times that stops people from even trying to write that book. That stops you from even trying to go on stage. But you, even though you have struggled with perfection, I think at times, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So even though that's been part of your life, you still have taken action. How did you get through perfection to get to the point of being somebody who just takes relentless action?
I sit down and have a conversation with myself and say, knock it off. Just do it. Right? Okay, I started a podcast in July of 2025. I decided I wanted to have a podcast in mid 2021. I bought books. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And finally, at the end of June, I said, you're just going to do it. You're going to go out there, you're going to figure out the few things you need to do. You're going to get on Zoom. You know some really interesting, cool people. You're going to record it, and you're going to do it. And it worked. It was not nearly as difficult as I thought it would be.
Yep.
The technology is there. I set up an account on one service. It spreads it to all the others. It's simple, and it's really fun.
Oh my God, it's so fun.
Love it. See, and I had heard that forgive the dogs that are barking in the background.
That'll be the next book. How do you shut your dogs up?
Well, the answer is don't have a 3-month-old puppy that likes to nip at their ankles.
Well, that could be a metaphor. A 3-month-old puppy that likes to nip at their ankles could be that fear that you have.
What's your 3-month-old puppy?
It's a little more complicated than the chickens, although it'll be nice for you to get dogs in the mail and dog gifts and
little squeaky dogs, dog toys. Right. By the way, when a chicken goes bad, some of these chickens
can go bad.
Well, okay, so this one's nice, right? You can see him. This one, see, you know what that becomes? Dog toy.
Yeah. By the way, that's another thing you could bring out. You could bring out all your broken chickens. Like sometimes you fry them. Sometimes I love the fry your chickens thing. I really do. Okay, so I mentioned in the open that you had a heart attack. I didn't know you had a heart attack. When did this happen?
2015.
Okay, so you're 10 years out of it now.
I am 10 years out of it, yes.
What happened?
I was getting ready for another Toastmaster speech contest, and I had made it to the semifinals again. And the way the speech contest worked back then was you would finish your district contest in May, and then you would spend until August practicing, refining, et cetera, et cetera. So I was all in on the practicing and refining, and I was burning the candle on both ends. And I tried this bulletproof coffee, which is a terrible idea. And we'll just leave it at that. And throughout the summer, I noticed I was starting to get tired easily and getting winded. And it was somewhere in those practices that I talked to a Toastmaster friend of mine. I said, I haven't seen you in a while. He said, well, I had a heart attack. I said, well, tell me about it. And he's ticking off. At that moment, he ticked off all the symptoms I had just before the heart attack. So I'm at summer camp with my son. The next week I'm supposed to go out to Vegas for the contest, and I'm starting to notice everything he said was happening to me. And then on Thursday we played a game called Human Hungry Hippos, Hungry Hippos, where you've got the game where the hippos, you pull in all the balls. Well, they replaced the hippos with humans. So it was at the adult leader event, and they put you down on like wheeled casters from the trash can, and they swung us around, and we're trying to grab all the softballs. And so I'm swinging around and running around, and afterwards I just felt terrible and went to the health officer, and she said, yeah, your blood pressure is like 100/60 or something, even lower. And my blood pressure is never low. And so my wife called me after I told her what was going on, and she grabbed the phone from my wife and said, if this is my husband, I call 911. Sent me to the hospital, and they said, yeah, you had a heart attack.
Wow. So it wasn't the chickens that did you, and it was the hippos.
It was the hippos. Yes. So
you connected those dots?
Fry your hippos would take a really big pan, wouldn't
it? Yeah. So how did that change you?
So what happened was, after I got a couple stents, and then the surgeon said, you need to manage your stress. And he said, you got to promise me that 1 week out of every 3 months, you will unplug and take some vacation time. So I said I would do it. And my wife was in the room, which meant I actually had to do it. Right. And so it was January when I got back to work. So end of March, she said, you're going to take the week off, and we're just going to do little things around Cincinnati. We're going to have a staycation. So the first day we went to the zoo, and at the end of the day, I got on Facebook and said, hey, here were the great things that happened today. And everybody gave me likes. I'm like, well, I got likes. I got to keep doing this because, likes on Facebook, that's where it's at. Right. So the next day was the art museum, and I put another list of things together. And somewhere in the course of that week, I thought, I'm going back to work next week. I wonder how long I could keep finding great things. And the answer is, it's been 10 years. And I'm still finding. Yeah. And so I'm training myself to be positive and to express gratitude. Didn't even realize that's what I was doing.
That's awesome.
But it worked out so well.
It's, that's a big thing that the Artist's Way, the book, The Artist's Way, talks about. Once you journal, it's all about journaling. 3 pages every day, no matter how you feel. 3 pages every day. And a lot of that stuff at first, it comes out angry and frustration. And then once you get through that, you start to get to the magic and the other thoughts. And then as you're reading the book and you're going through the process, she says, now I want you to, for 1 hour a week, go and have a play date with yourself. What would the younger version of you want to do? Just you by yourself without anybody else for 1 hour a week. And that was really transformative for me, because I couldn't even come up with, I said, oh my God, what has happened to me that I don't even have things that I like? So I had to start making a list, and I ended up playing pool with a sharpshooter, and I went and got a pedicure, and I took a yoga class, and it opens up your world.
I like that. Yeah, I've heard, I don't do a formal journaling process, and I know I need to, because I've heard that is the number one thing that can lower your stress, is journaling at the end of the day.
I don't know. I don't know that you need to. It sounds like you got things figured out pretty.
Yeah. Maybe you're right.
By the way, doing a good job with gratitude. That's a huge one.
By the way, when you said play date with yourself, all I could think of was inappropriate.
Well, none of them have been yet. I haven't run out. Once I run out of ideas, maybe. But so far, they've all been G-rated.
Nice. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's been. I've used it with so many clients, and they all come back and feel recharged. You remember when you were 10? Can you remember that?
Yeah,
what it felt like to be 10?
Oh yeah,
it was awesome.
Go outside. Things. Yeah, we had a barn. Throw the tennis ball against the barn and catch it with the glove.
Your favorite toy. Your favorite toy growing up, and how much you cherished it. All that stuff, that energy that you have, it's still in you. It's just we kind of quiet it and say, I got time to be the responsible adult who.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you can even think about that. I mean, I can spend time in the morning just thinking about throwing the tennis ball against a barn or playing with my Tonka truck or something like that. And your brain goes right back to that moment and makes those chemicals all over again.
And it gets the magic kicking, for sure. Like that's a great way to write before you write is to summon up those types of things and see them through your eyes and associate yourself to it. I'll go to candy stores sometimes because they bring back my childhood feelings and memories. And I'll just go like, oh my God, look at these. Remember these swizzle sticks? And you remember this? Oh, it's Big League Chew. And
Oh my gosh, yeah.
and I'm just so happy. I can smell the candy and I'm touching the powdery candy and it just brings you back to the childhood.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, we've got an international grocery store that has a huge candy section. And I wander through there. I was like, holy cow, I haven't seen Beeman's gum in forever, but there it is. And all the candies I had as a kid, it's like, wow. I don't even necessarily have to buy them, right? Just look at them, smell them, and take a trip down memory lane.
yes, 100%. Now, you mentioned you have a podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
It is called Fry Your Chickens,
Okay.
of course.
Yep. I saw online it said Phil Barth Speaks. What's that about?
That's one of my handles. When I initially got going on social media, Phil Barth, another Phil Barth, had Instagram. So it was Phil Barth Speaks. My original website was www.philbarthspeaks.com because somebody had philbarth.com. And eventually they didn't renew. And so I grabbed it. And I told that story. I told that story at a conference in Toronto. You can't make this stuff up. And a lady came up afterwards. She goes, I'm from California. I know that Phil Barth.
Get out of here.
He was a chef.
Amazing.
I know him. I said, well, next time you see him, tell him thank you.
Okay. So I ask every guest the same question. This question. Put these in order of importance.
Okay.
Okay. Passion, work ethic, adaptability.
Passion, adaptability, work ethic.
Well, you knew it right away. So why do you think work ethic's third? You're the first person I've asked who said work ethic third.
I mean, you got to do the work, but it's going to be a lot easier if you have the passion.
Right.
I didn't need a work ethic to try to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I don't need a work ethic to motivate myself to do public speaking. I feel like if I had to do something I didn't like, then I better have a work ethic to show up. But for what I'm doing right now for the keynotes, I don't need a work ethic. Adaptability, because change comes at us so fast, and you got to be adaptable. I could sit here and go, I don't want to use AI when I'm composing speeches. That'd be a bad idea.
Right.
It's a tool. You got to adapt and thrive.
What do you think you struggle with out of these three things? I think usually people at different points in their life struggle with one of these three things: being in your truth and knowing who you are, taking action and doing, or having the ability to have what you want in life.
Taking action. And I go back to, I've got a podcast in 2025 when I said I wanted to do it in 2021. So taking action was a struggle when it's something that's unknown. I feel pretty comfortable being in my truth. Every once in a while something will happen and I just have to, to use a game show reference, the big red X on Family Feud. And wrong answer, Phil. Move on. You are where you need to be, who you need to be with. You are in the right moment at this time. Move on. So I'm pretty good with being in my truth, but taking action sometimes, and it's the perfection struggle and everything we talked about. That's the one that frequently rears its ugly head.
What is success to you?
Success is helping others. I've got it on my whiteboard over there, bringing laughter to millions, helping others lower their stress, living life to the absolute fullest.
And what does living life to the absolute fullest mean to you?
It means spending time with my family, quality time with my family. It means that whole idea of wherever I'm at, this is what I was meant to do. It means taking trips to, vacation or keynotes to Europe and getting to bring my family along. What an amazing life this is. And getting to do that and enjoy it and just kind of, let's take that, what I just said about going to Europe. 10 days in Europe, we got to do Belgium and the Netherlands. I used 2 days, I had to speak for 2 days. That meant a week in Belgium and Netherlands on a paid vacation.
That's amazing.
And the whole time I'm there, I'm like, this is the dream.
I really feel like you deserve it.
Well, thank you.
You know, you've worked hard. You seem like you're a good guy. Like some people, you're just happy for them when they have that success. I'm happy for you.
Well, and I'm happy for you and everything that you've done as well. So it's just
Are you talking about my play dates?
inappropriate. Inappropriate.
All right, so you threw me off on your podcast, and so now I'm going to do the same thing to you.
Oh, here we go.
You asked ChatGPT to come up with some questions for me, and then you had me either answer them or pass them. So I asked ChatGPT to come up with some questions for you. I don't know if that's a regular thing you're doing on your podcast. Do you do that for every guest?
Yes,
Okay, so maybe you've heard some of these because ChatGPT sometimes isn't so original, but we'll see.
we'll see.
Okay, if someone made a movie about your life, but the title had to be the name of a fast food menu item, what would it be?
The Whopper.
How could it not involve chickens? I
Oh,
can't believe
crap.
you
Oh my
didn't think of KFC for a second.
Oh my God. Why did the Whopper pop in my head? This is my Hercules moment all over again.
This is your what was the answer? I forget the answer to the question.
Odysseus was the answer. This is my Hercules moment.
Oh,
Where I
that's
said the wrong
funny.
answer. Yeah, let's go with that. Popeye's chicken. Popeye, you think of the muscles and chicken.
It's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast and just talking about life. And I hope that this friendship goes far beyond these two podcasts and we stay in touch and we
Absolutely.
get to work together at some
That
point.
would be fantastic. That would be absolutely fantastic. And when we do, I'm going to put it all over social media. Check out Rich at his keynote
It'll be on Phil Barth Speaks.
on Instagram. Yes, Phil Barth on all the other socials.
All right, great. Well, this has been Living Rich Sirop. Hope you had a good time. We'll see you, hear from you, talk to you next time.